Okay, geometry, lesson 9.2. So in chapter 9, we're still on triangles, okay? But 9.2 is something that you guys have probably already used, hopefully, and you know it. It's the Pythagorean Theorem, okay? And right, so the way we know the Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I will be honest, I don't particularly love the way it's written that way, okay? It's great to remember it, but what are a, what are b, and what is c, okay? Also, if they move the letters around on you, you're going to get confused. So what the theorem actually states, and it's theorem 9.4, is that in a right triangle, okay, so here's your right triangle. The square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs. Right, so here's your right triangle. We call this side A and B as our legs and C as the hypotenuse. So, right, the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse squared is equal to the sum of the lengths of the legs, or the square of the lengths of the legs. So I think the best way to remember it is leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Because then you remember that A and B are the lengths of the legs, not necessarily A in the triangle or B in the triangle. Okay? In the book, they go ahead and prove it for you on page 535. Okay? They use the last section. So, use what we learned in 9.1 to make that proof. So, something to look at and understand. Okay? So, that's just what the Pythagorean Theorem is, how it's worded. Okay? With the Pythagorean Theorem, you can have a Pythagorean triple. Okay, and what a Pythagorean triple is a set of integers. So integers are positive and negative whole numbers, okay? So a set of integers, a, b, and c, that satisfy the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so for example, 3, 4, and 5 are a Pythagorean triple. Since 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Okay, with if you're trying to check them, right, the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So I know 5 has to be the value for C. Okay, so it just means that the three numbers are whole numbers that make the Pythagorean theorem true. So here is a right triangle, okay, side of 7, 24, and the hypotenuse is x. We want to find x and decide if it's a Pythagorean triple, okay? So the Pythagorean theorem says leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So 7 is a leg, 24 is a leg, and x is the hypotenuse. So that would be 49 plus 256 equals x squared. And 49 plus 256, or not 256. That should be 576. Read it wrong. Okay, then 49 plus 576 equals 625. And then to get x by itself, you're going to take the square root of that. This is the one time that I'm not going to say x is positive or negative, because x is representing a side length, and length can't be negative. So we get that x is 25. So our three sides are sides of 7, 24, and 25. So this would be a Pythagorean triple, because these are all whole numbers. Okay, and I got them using the Pythagorean theorem to find that missing side length. All right, I have another right triangle here. Here's my right angle. This is 12x and 6 times the square root of 5. Okay, I want to find the missing length. So I know 12 and x are the legs. So 12 squared plus x squared equals 6 times the square root of 5 squared. Okay, so this would be x squared plus 144. 6 times the square root of 5 squared is 180, because 6 gets squared and the square root of 5 gets squared. So 6 squared is 36, square root of 5 squared is 5, and 36 times 5 is 180. Okay, then I'm going to subtract 144 from both sides, so I get x squared equals 36. Take the square root, and again, this is the one time you're not going to use a negative, because x represents a length. Okay, so our sides on this one are 6, 12, and 6 times the square root of 5. This is not a Pythagorean triple, because 6 times the square root of 5 is not an integer. Okay? All right. So again, this is kind of a short lesson, right? You should know the Pythagorean theorem. I think we've used it before. Okay? So just more application of it. All right. Here's h. This whole side is 10 meters, 8 meters, 8 meters. We want to find the area of this triangle, the whole big one. So we know area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So on what we know, right, the base and height have to be perpendicular. So you know the base is 10 meters. So then the area is 1/2 times 10, and then we have to find the height. Okay? So since this was an isosceles triangle, right, two sides are the same, one side is not, so it's isosceles. So by drawing in the height, we have created two congruent triangles. So that means this side and this side are the same. So this is 5 meters and 5 meters. We're going to use that now to say, okay, h is the height here. One side is 5, one is 8. How can we find the height? Well, this is a right triangle, so the height is a leg. So the height squared plus 5 squared equals 8 squared, because 8 is your hypotenuse. We solve for h. So h squared plus 25 equals 64. H squared equals 64 minus 25, which is 39. Right? And then h is the square root of 39. So we're going to put that in here. Okay? So the area then is 1/2 times 10 times the square root of 39. So 1/2 times 10 is 5 times the square root of 39. You could use a calculator and you get approximately 31.2 meters squared. take the square root of 39 first, and then multiply it by 5. Okay, so 9.2 is just the Pythagorean theorem. So applying leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared.